I went through basic training, and then
What'd you think when you got to basic training?
I'll tell you. So my recruiter.
I always tell people, I'm like, when you get to boot camp, you're not gonna like me anymore. There's gonna be 2 to 3 weeks where you're like, Jocko, I hate that guy. If I ever see him, I'll take a swing at him. Because almost no matter who you are, when you get to boot camp, you think, this was a mistake.
Yeah, especially them first 3 weeks. But then toward the end, it starts to be kind of
right.
You're like, this is cool. And so I went to Fort Benning, but Pogue side Fort Benning. And again, you wake up every morning screaming infantry and all this shit. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. And then my recruiter had also, he put me through MEPS with the airborne physical and all this stuff. Told me I had airborne on my contract, all this shit. I get into boot camp, and like 2 weeks before, when you're at Benning, they call up and they're like, everybody with airborne on your contract, come in here and line up. I come line up, I go in there and he's like, what the fuck are you doing in here? And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, you ain't no fucking airborne on your contract. Let's get out of here. So
it wasn't even in your contract.
He went as far as to put me through the airborne physical. Yeah.
But it wasn't in your contract.
Yeah, like why go through the physical if it's not like why no one else does. So anyway, I felt like I got kind of, but it worked out. I'm not trying to complain, but I do feel like I'm a little irritated. So I'm salty, like almost 20 years later about this.
But when you're going in through boot camp in the National Guard to be a reservist, you must also, that's like make it a little bit more comfortable, because you can find some comfort in the fact that like, God, well, at least I didn't go active duty.
Sure.
Whereas if you're active duty, you're like, oh, this is the next 4 years of my life is to be surrounded by these crazy people yelling and screaming, because you think that's what the military is like when you go to boot camp.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess, but I just want to go to the war, man. Mm-hmm. So as soon as I got back to my unit after AIT and all this stuff.
So you went to boot camp, AIT. Were you kicking ass in AIT since you killed so many freaking woodpeckers growing up? Were you like, no. Were you marksman expert and all that stuff?
I mean, I shot fine. I don't think I was, but the triggers on those were really hard to get used to. The M16 trigger at first, but I mean, I shot fine.
What about just like being out in the woods and feeling good about all that?
That was great. Yeah.
Did you kind of kick ass in AIT?
Yeah, especially like the FTX stuff. I mean, it was like nothing, man. It's like all these dudes are all worried about like 3 days in the mud. It's like, bro, it's like camping, man. The only time it sucked is when at Benning on our final FTX, it rained, which I think is true for like almost anybody that goes through Benning, but it rained for like the entire time. So all of our hasties were like water up to our chest and stuff like that, In fact, one time during night guard, my buddy, you had your ankles interlocked in hasties or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, he was sleeping and I was up, and it was his turn. I turn around and there's a wolf spider like this big. Sheesh. And I put that sucker on his chest, right? And I just tapped him until he woke up. His eyes were like, you can't make noise, So his eyes were like, I'm trying to get it off and shit. Anyway, yeah.
I was in Fort Lewis, Washington. I was going through SEAL tactical training, which is what you do when you're a new guy. And there's some pretty heinous mosquitoes where we were. And I had learned to carry a mosquito. I would just carry like a 1 yard square of mosquito netting. And that way, if we laid up, I could just take that thing out and just put it underneath my floppy hat and tuck it in my collar, and I'd be good to go. Well, the officer that was in charge of us brought like a full-on mosquito net like you see, I don't know, like maybe in some British colonist would wear in like Africa in like 1875 or something. This big giant screen with the wicker bands around it pushing it out. And so we're in this layup position, and this other friend of mine didn't have any net, and a lot of guys actually didn't have any net. And so my buddy was sitting there catching mosquitoes and putting them into this dude while he was sleeping, catching mosquitoes. And so the mosquitoes were actually trapped inside this guy. He woke up in the morning and caught it. So I got a kick out of that one.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah. What were you going to say, though? So you put the spider on the dude?
Oh, yeah. It was just funny to watch him spaz out when he knew he couldn't make noise, Yeah. This mosquito one's better, though.